All right, hey, I just wanted to check in with my end of February reading wrap up, reading recap, whatever you want to call it. I would normally be trying to do normally, I've done it once. I would try to do a look ahead into March right now, but I didn't get any books. I haven't gotten any books yet for March. I'm kind of waiting for my paycheck to roll in next week after paying rent this month, so I'm waiting for that to roll in, and then I'll be able to go get some more books. I still have a couple that I didn't get to from February anyway, so it's not a big deal. I'm just rolling those over. So I don't have really a look ahead right now. I don't know what I'm gonna be reading throughout March yet. So this is just my February wrap up and what I read throughout the month of February. The first thing I want to start with is actually not books necessarily, but it's a little new hobby I picked up that I just kind of wanted to put out there. When I was a kid, I really liked doing like word searches and crosswords and Sudoku and stuff, and so I was like, why did I stop doing those? And I found these actually at Walmart for $3 a piece, and I've been really liking the Sudoku one. I'm not as big of a word search person, but I really like crosswords and Sudoku. And I just wanted to put these out there. These are actually really good and really fun. For $3 a piece, like if you just wanted Sudoku, $3, it's a big book of Sudoku puzzles, and they go from like easy, medium to hard, and then they have the solutions in the back if you are a little bitch about it. I'm just kidding. But it is really just kind of a new little hobby I'm picking up to even further get me off my phone. And I just wanted to put that out there at the beginning of the video for anybody who maybe didn't even think about picking these up physically or plays it on an app on their phone maybe. Try picking up the physical versions. It's a lot more engaging. So, oh god, I don't have a spot to put these. I'll put that there. Now I'll get into the actual books I read. So my month started off from February 1st to the 2nd. I read Run Away With Me by Daniel Hurst. This is 291 pages, and it's a story about a man who comes home to his wife, his pregnant wife, and says, "Hey, I accidentally hit and killed somebody on my way home. I didn't call the cops because I had a few beers. I'm scared. We got to get out of here. We got to go to my sister's cabin until this maybe blows over. This is scary." Well, in the first little bit of the book, this isn't a spoiler, you find that there's something else actually going on. Maybe he didn't hit and kill somebody, and he's just trying to get his wife separate from the rest of the world for some reason. So it's a really, really engaging book. I really, really liked it a lot. The reviews for all of these books that I'm going to go over are already up on my channel. So if you want a more in-depth review, you can go check those out. So that was Run Away With Me, the first book. The next book I went into was The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. And I picked this up because I really, really enjoyed The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn that I had read last month. And I enjoyed this almost as much. I think I still preferred Huckleberry Finn just because I like his character a bit more. But I read this from the 2nd to the 3rd. This was 227 pages. Fantastic story. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that, though. This is a classic. And it was just as good as people say. So the next book I actually was reading while I was reading those because it is a chonky monkey. I started this January 30th and didn't finish it until February 9th. So this took me 10 days to read. This was 887 pages. It was fantastic. I mean, it's the 4th book in the Dark Tower series. So if you've already made it this far, you kind of know what you're in for in that series. This one did go back in time and went over Roland's life coming up and Susanna and some of those characters that you kind of heard Roland talk about, but now you get a little bit more in depth on who they are, and it's a fantastic story. I really liked Wizard and Glass, and every time I pick it up, I think of Kevin Tolreeds actually because this is his favorite in that series. This next book. So this is actually, I don't have the physical copy of this book, and I was going to show it on my Kindle, which is right back there, but it died. And I have literally no inclination to charge that thing ever again. I was only using it for my Kindle Unlimited for this series specifically, and that series is Dungeon Crawler Carl. And I read book 7 This Inevitable Ruin. You can see it right there. That don't let this fool you. This is definitely book 7 in my hands right now. This Inevitable Ruin by Matt Dinniman. Fantastic. It was fantastic. I read this from December. Why do I keep saying December? I read this from February 11th to February 15th, and it was 724 pages. I really, really enjoyed book 7. I thought it was amazing. My buddy who I was reading it with thought that the ending fell a little flat. I disagree. I really liked the way that it ended. It's not ending the series, it's ending the book to go on to the next book in the series. But regardless, I thought it was fantastic. This is by far my favorite series I've read. It's just so fun and so different from everything else I've read. Next I went into something a little bit different than that, and that is Oblivion Stories by David Foster Wallace. This is a short story collection of, I think it was 7 stories in here. Let me double check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 stories, my bad. It was 8 stories in this. 3 of them, I think, I had a hard time understanding because this guy is way, way smarter than I'll ever be. He was way smarter than I'll ever be. I really enjoyed the stories. Incarnations of Burned Children, I talked about it a lot during my review of it. That's my favorite story in this. I've read it so many times. But there's a couple other good stories in this as well. Another Pioneer and Good Old Neon being 2 that I think I remembered really sticking out to me as well. So this, it is a more difficult read, I would say, than the other books on this list. It's just a little bit more, he uses words that you gotta actually think about a little more. But regardless, I loved this. This was my first foray into David Foster Wallace and his writing style and what I could kind of expect if I decide to read Infinite Jest at one point in my life. That's something that's on my lifelong reading goals list. I don't think I'm going to get to it this year as I was previously hoping, because after reading that I realized how engaged I really have to be with the words in the text. And so I think I'm going to have to wait until a little bit later in my reading life to be able to read it and fully understand and appreciate his works. Especially when you see the next book that I read, which is a YA fantasy by the name of Eragon. Oh, by the way, Oblivion, I read that from the 10th to the 16th. That was 329 pages. Eragon, though, I read from the 17th to the 21st, and this is 503 pages. This is the first book in the Inheritance cycle. I picked this up because of the same buddy that I was reading Dungeon Crawler Carl with. This is his favorite series, apparently, from when we were younger. So I was like, hell yeah, I'll pick it up and read it with you. So he's rereading through this. I only had ever read, I think, this first book. I don't think I ever read the second book, and I only remembered a very, very small portion of this first book. So this was like a new reading experience for me anyway. I really enjoyed Eragon. I thought the story was awesome, especially because I was coming off of attempting to read book 5 of The Wheel of Time, which I'll get into at the end of this video, and why it's not on this list of finished books this month. But I really liked Eragon. I'm super excited to continue the series. I'm going to try to read one a month with him. We have a few books that we've been reading together and stuff, and it makes reading so much more fun. If you can find somebody that also enjoys reading, and you can convince them to buddy read something with you, there's no better feeling than being able to just text them and be like, holy shit, what's happening? This is awesome. And then they're also into it, and it's a lot of fun. It makes reading way more, I've said engaging a lot in this video, I know I have, but it does make reading more engaging. The next book I read was The Long Walk by Stephen King. I took my sweet time with this book, and towards the end of this month, I was really trying to just slow down on my reading. I felt like I was almost I was getting stressed out because I had 12 books that I wanted to read this month. I only finished 9, and one of those books wasn't one that was originally on my list. So I was starting to get that little bit of anxiety of, oh shit, I committed to too much, and then I realized, who am I committing to? It doesn't matter. It's just gonna roll over to the next month. So I started to really slow down on my reading, and I think that that's gonna be the case going forward, where I just try to read a little bit slower than I previously was. It's not that I wasn't getting out of it what I was hoping to get out of it, because I feel like I still was understanding and comprehending and deriving meaning from everything I've read this month, but I just wanted to slow down and take my time a little bit more. But that started really here with The Long Walk. So The Long Walk took me 10 days, and this is short. Granted, I read like 2 or 3 other books in between there, because I read this from the 16th to the 26th, and during that time I also had read Aragon and had I read half of book 5 of The Wheel of Time. But this is 320 pages. This is by far top 5 Stephen King books I've read so far. Fantastic. It's about a group of young men who have applied and gotten into this long walk where they're forced to maintain a speed of 4 miles per hour and keep walking, and there's 100 of them, and only one is ever gonna make it to the end. The other 99 are gonna get shot and killed if they stop for too long. So I love the concept. He's making friends along the way that he's sees die. It's a very, very Stephen King book, because he writes humanity in such a interesting and insightful way that you really feel for the characters, and that's what I think he does best, is his character work. So I really enjoyed The Long Walk. The Stephen King book, this is probably actually my least favorite Stephen King book I've read so far. End of Watch. And this is book 3 in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I read this from the 26th to the 27th. That was one day, and it was 400 pages. This is it was all right. It just wasn't really necessarily the end to the story, to the trilogy, that I would have hoped for. Not that I had real hopes and ideas of how I wanted this to end. It didn't have a real impact on me, this whole book. A lot of it kind of felt like it should have been the second book in the series, and if he even needed a second book in the series. I talked about it more in my review, but it was all right. I mean, the story wasn't bad by any means, but it just wasn't that interesting to me, I suppose. It was fine. The last book I read, which I actually just read yesterday and reviewed yesterday, is No Longer Human by Osamu Dazai. This is a very interesting read, very insightful to get inside the mind of somebody who has no connections to humans. They are kind of a sociopath. They walk the world not really caring about other people, in terms of they have to mimic what they see as positive emotions. And Yozo, the main character of this, he is constantly trying to appease everyone, and he's putting on sort of a life performance for everybody. He's not ever really himself, because he doesn't himself know who he is. It's a really, really good book, short read, 177 pages, took me a day. I highly recommend anybody to pick this up. And I mean, even on this, look at how small. There's so much room at the bottom. So this is not a long book by any means. Anyway, that's the last book I read throughout February. Now I'm going to get into the points where I failed in February, and that actually starts with this son of a bitch. I read half of this book, and I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Everything about it. I don't care for these characters, I'm realizing. The Wheel of Time. Sorry, this is The Fires of Heaven. This is book 5 in the Wheel of Time series. I tried reading this before I read Aragon, and I was struggling so much to pick this up. I was dreading it every single time I had to pick this book up, because I just did not want to get back into this world. I don't care about this world. Frankly, it sucks. This is the first book I have ever soft DNF'd. I'm not going to say it's a hard DNF. I will come back to the Wheel of Time at some point. I don't think it's going to be this year. I'll be honest with you. I need to take a long, prolonged break from this series. I already didn't like book 4, which a lot of people say they loved. And then going into this, the first fucking half is just girls arguing about nothing. Absolutely nothing. And no real story progression. It felt like nothing was ever happening that I ever cared about. And on top of that, there's like 2,500 named characters in this series. So they just Robert Jordan puts names out there, and you're like, who was that again? What's their significance? What's going on? And I was having a hard time keeping up. It's a kind of series that I think you really do need to take notes for, and I'm not ready for something like that. I was not interested in this at all. I was despising picking it up every day. I realized I needed to drop it. I think I'm gonna go put this in a free little library because it ain't for me. It ain't for me. Now, the other 3 books that I had originally intended on reading this month and I didn't get to, I'm a little less guilty about. The first of those books is the second Mistborn book, The Well of Ascension. Now, the reason I didn't get to this book this month is actually because of my buddy. I'm buddy reading the Mistborn series with that same guy that I'm reading Eragon and Dungeon Crawler Carl with, and we read both Eragon and Dungeon Crawler Carl this month, and book 7 of Dungeon Crawler Carl this month. He wasn't necessarily ready to jump into the second book this month, which I understand. Not everybody reads as much as some people. Obviously, everybody has different reading speeds, different times that they can read. That's a big thing too. Is I have a lot of time to read, which is why I was able to read 9 books this month. I just have a little bit of time. I don't have kids. I'm not in a relationship. I get home from work and I can just hang out and read until WWE comes on. So that is kind of what my routine has been the last month. And we just didn't get to this month. So I'm hoping that he'll be ready to read this book in March because I have it sitting here and I definitely want to continue Vin's story. I'm super invested in the Mistborn world. I loved that first book. So I'm hoping that we're able to get to this month. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to. But I'm going to have to talk to him about that. The next book that I didn't get to is The Wolves of the Kala, or Wolves of the Kala? Yeah, Wolves of the Kala. This is book 5 in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. This always is my last book of the month that I read. I don't know why. This is like a transition book. Every single month is the Dark Tower series. But I just didn't get to it. It was behind this month and I didn't end up getting to it. So this is probably going to be started here in the next couple weeks, or maybe next week, depending on when I finish the next book that I'm going to talk about, which is the last book that I am about to start today, Streets of Laredo. This is the second book in the Lonesome Dove series. I absolutely loved Lonesome Dove. It is my favorite book of all time. I think I'm going to try to read Lonesome Dove yearly. I'll be honest with you. I read it last year and I only read it, 5 months ago? And I'm jonesing to read it again. So that's why I was like, I gotta finish. Maybe I'll just read the series and then I'll see how I feel. I heard that none of the other books in the series come close to being as good as Lonesome Dove. That's all right. I just want to be back in the world. I want to be with Call again. I just want to be in the world of Lonesome Dove again. There's something so comforting about the world to me. Even though it's a dangerous, scary world, there's something that draws me into it and makes me wish I was a part of these people's group and the Hat Creek gang. It's such a good little story and world he's built, and I love it. So I'm gonna start this today. I actually just started the Lonesome Dove miniseries last night. I watched 2 of the episodes of the 4. I'm gonna try to read the other 2 this morning and then jump into this book. So that should be a lot of fun, just coming off of the series to kind of remind myself of some of the little nuances that happened throughout the book and get me ready to continue. So that was my February reading wrap up. I don't have anything to look forward to March right now besides these 3 books are the only ones I know. Well, possibly this one, but these for sure I'm going to be reading this month. Other than that, I don't know what I'm reading this month yet, so it's going to be a mystery. I don't think I'm going to do a March look ahead this month or anything like that. It'll just kind of be a surprise when I review it. So I appreciate y'all for sticking around this long. I know this is a longer video, but I just get excited about talking about the books I love. So I appreciate you sticking around, and thanks.